Pax vobiscum, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to have another episode of the Vestal Virgin Plays, where we're going to continue playing Dear Esther, the Landmark Edition. We played through a bit of this game last week, and so today we have another hour. I was debating whether to do start and try from a different chapter or hit resume. Resume takes me back a little farther back than we had been before, so let's try start. And the buoy was where we were sort of at last time, where we saw the wrecked ship, so we're going to try from here.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
So it looks like this actually started us a little farther back, where we hopped down the edge of the cliff to continue walking along the trail. So it looks like we will play through a bit more than we initially thought. But we'll go ahead and walk back up to the buoy. It wasn't that long of a walk, luckily. But I do recall the narrator stating that before, this concept of, I do believe that he is talking about a car wreck of some sort that must have happened, and he has a recollection of it, but he goes back to look for where this wreck would have taken place, but there's no evidence of it having happened, and that is weighing heavily upon him. Very, very interesting, a sort of blend between literature and a car wreck of some sort, and this beautiful scenery and an intriguing story where you can't quite be sure what's going on. And from what I recall too, as we were walking here at the very tip of this trail down towards the buoy itself, we heard strange noises, like a whispering, but like it was coming through
an imagined answer phone message. The tires are flat, the wheel spins loosely, and the brake fluid has run like ink over this map, staining the landmarks and rendering the coastline mute, compromised. Where you saw galaxies, I saw only bruises cut into the cliff by my lack of sobriety.
I'd forgotten he spoke there, I apologize, but tires are flat, oil spilling. Where you saw bruises, or where you saw galaxies, I saw bruises. A lack of sobriety, which, based off of the words that he has stated so far, makes me think of perhaps he was drunk, maybe, when he was driving. Either he was driving and Esther was a passenger, or someone else was a passenger, or maybe he hit someone. I'm not sure. And then we've got I do believe this is a biblical quote here. Neither did he eat or nor drink, which I think I said last time, I think is referring to the passage in the Bible referring to Jesus' time out in the wilderness. And so we can hear the buoy ringing. I don't recall if I heard that last time, actually. It must have, but I distinctly remember last time. I don't know if it's because we had come to this point before, but hearing a strange garbled whispering at the edge of the wind, just odd enough to make me think that it was something, but also low enough to where I wasn't quite sure. And I think that is what I enjoy about this game, is the subtle strangeness of it all, of the cryptic words and narrations, these subtle sounds that you hear almost at the edges of your vision. At your vision, yes, I see with my ears. Oops. At the edges of your hearing, excuse me. But yes, very... I cannot get over the sound design. And again, something as simple as hearing... You don't necessarily see the ship moving, but it is the sound. The sound of it moving, the sound of the chains of the water hitting the bottom of the boat. The sound designers for this game did a magnificent job. And so I believe seeing the paint painted on the outside of the... Oh, and there's paint right here too. This leads me to believe that this is the same vessel that was carrying the sort of glowing paint that we've been seeing. And perhaps is also the same ship that was carrying the yogurt that got washed out to sea, perhaps. Yes, lots of paint cans and... Oh, what looks like an old radio or a computer, perhaps. Maybe someone tried to call for help. Yes, but this has obviously been here for a good deal of time. And seemingly abandoned. I don't know what would have happened to the sailors here. But it would be odd to me that the ship should wreck on this island and then not be retrieved. And there's another ship there too, so we've seen several vessels beached here before, which is rather odd. Let's see. I think I'm going to walk back up here a pace. It looks like... Actually... Okay, so... We came sort of...
I had kidney stones and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
Oh, so more clarity. So Esther came to visit him when he had kidney stones, and for a moment she seemed to fade because of the pain and the medication. And then he talks about, in a poetic way, how his stones grew to become an island. So, again, maybe something that drew Esther to him. And then he says, but then you were rendered opaque by the car of a drunk. So that almost confirms that there's some sort of drunk driving incident that must have happened. Now, whether it was Esther that was in the vehicle with him when this occurred, or he was the one that hit Esther, being rendered opaque makes me almost think of, maybe unfortunately she passed due to that accident, unfortunately. And I forgot that sometimes the speeches by the narrator are not forewarned by music. So when he started speaking, I actually started to be a little bit with a piece of a car for some reason. And I figured, because there seemed to be different trigger points here, so might as well walk back up as we saw. There was one trigger point there, and see if we can hear anything else. If not, I'm going to loop back down. And it looked as if there was a walkway along the water there. Achievement unlocked, Man of the Rocks. I'm not sure what that is for, but we will find out. So I'm going to walk silently over, and we'll walk along the sea, it looks like, as far as we can, and then loop back around and walk back up here and see what we can see, if there's anything of interest there.
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
There must be a hole at the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits... My goodness, I cannot speak coherently today. New hermits? Bottom of the boat, new hermits. I recall he spoke of a tale of a hermit arriving to the island in a boat without a bottom, so he was able to talk to sea creatures of some sort, but otherwise, maybe? Maybe he's referring to these beached vessels, which if they hit the rocks, the bottoms of the boats would have been torn out forcefully. Oh, maybe that's... And as I said before with the sailors, maybe that's what he's referring to, is these hermits, because he said because we're having new hermits come to the island. Maybe that's what he's referring to, is the fact that, you know, the hermits are the sailors marooned on the island. Now this is interesting. We have some sort of another... I think there was something carved in the sand a bit farther back, but... An unassuming rock sitting in a circle, and then a line is carved to this rock, and there's a sort of strange symbol here. It doesn't look like it was painted necessarily. The paint that we've been seeing is bluish and almost glows. This looks like it was maybe carved... Oh my goodness, excuse me. Oh dear. So this looks like it was carved into the rock itself. Perhaps, I don't know if you've ever rubbed two rocks together and, you know, been able to draw on a rock. It leaves a white line, and I think that's what this might be, but what is the significance of this? A sort of rock... Oh, maybe this represents the island, perhaps? But this symbol looks a bit different. It doesn't look necessarily as organic as the paintings in the caves, perhaps. So you see the tower there? It's not quite visible, but as the clouds part away from it, maybe this is an artistic rendering of the tower? That might be too much of a stretch. Or perhaps it represents maybe the radio tower or a mast of one of the ships. I'm gonna go with that theory for right now. That it represents the tower, because that for some reason makes sense to me, but I guess we'll find out. What I'm very curious is why this phrase in particular is painted... First off, was painted on the side of the ship. Second off, why that particular phrase? It's very interesting. And now we will, I guess, continue on. It didn't look like we could walk any farther there, so it looks like we shall press a bit deeper into the island itself now. Oh, okay, so there's two paths here. Since we seem to be on the lower one, we'll continue walking this way. These paths do not seem to be very well kept. Obviously, I've been here for some time. Oh, what's this? Oh my.
What charnel house lies at the foot of this abyss? How many dead shepherds could fill this hole?
How many dead oh, that was a little frightening. How many dead shepherds could fill this hole? That's terrifying. That is quite the cavern, but it looks like it fades down into water down there. And the sound that it makes as the wind whistles through it is startling. Now, I can't quite tell, but the
Come back.
Oh my goodness! Oh no! I didn't realize. I thought, I could walk up to the edge and nothing would happen, but oh dear. Well, it took one foolish shepherd to go to the edge and fall in. Oh, that startled me. Oh dear. Well, as I was trying to say, I'm not going to go too far close anymore. It kind of looks like maybe this was carved versus naturally occurring. I don't know why. Something about the striations of the rock, almost like it's like a twisting screw into the side of the rock or so. Goodness gracious! Oh, that did actually scare me. And then the wisp that I play this with headphones to try to get a more immersive experience with listening to things, particularly sound design, and the whispering of the "come back" sent a shiver through my spine. I'm going to pause here. I apologize if you hear strange noises for a few minutes, but I think I will cut the video here actually, but it seems that I have a package delivered and I don't want to leave it outside for too long because unfortunately where I live we've had issues with people taking our packages like within minutes of them being delivered, so I'll go grab that really quick and then we shall continue. Be right back. Alrighty, I'm back. Okay, so let's see, where were we? I fell off of the edge of the cliff. Now we're walking up here. It looks like both of these paths. Oh, okay, some houses up here. Some sort of walkways or maybe low stone fenced off areas. So just in case, I'm going to walk back down this path just a bit to make sure that we didn't miss anything important. Such as a narration moment. Doesn't seem to be, so we shall head back. For a moment, it looked like there was a person standing there, and I was about to go running out of my office. Like I said before, I am a scaredy cat, and so accidentally falling down a deep chasm was not enjoyable. But yeah, to me, it doesn't look necessarily natural, almost carved through or punched through, maybe even. Okay, so we appear to be getting closer to the tower there. And what looks like some very old abandoned homes.
I've begun my ascent on the green slope of the western side. I've looked deep into the mountain from the shaft and understood that I must go up and then find the way under. I will stash the last vestiges of my civilization in the stone walls and work deeper from there. I'm drawn by the aerial and the cliff edge. There is some form of rebirth waiting for me there.
Interesting. Ascent, summit. He's going towards the aerial, which I believe is, the British term for a communications tower or something, but he said he would store the last vestiges of his humanity in the stone walls, and I'm assuming he means these, perhaps? Yes, we will head to the left here first. Okay. Try to stay on trail here. Lots of large rocks out there. I don't see any other marooned ships there. Oh, it's very rocky. Let's see. It looks as if there's a pathway down there as well, so I'm hoping we get to go... Oh! That looks like a very, very old ship. Wreckage, perhaps. Maybe even a Viking ship. Okay, I think we shall continue upwards, and then, when the opportunity presents itself, head back down and investigate.
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him, either.
Maybe that was the roving Scandinavian ship there. So, a bothy? I'm assuming that is some sort of structure. I'm actually not familiar with that term. I haven't heard that before. I'll have to look that up. But that is quite the sad story, though, to, come to this island, try to build something of yourself, and then from the very animals that you're raising as part of your livelihood to get some sort of sickness, and then a mere 2 years after completing your work to be dead, and not just dead, but to die alone, and have no one to grieve for you, or let the world know of your passing, or that you needed help. Which I'm assuming is what those white lines were for. Okay, so it looks like this would actually continue us downwards, and I would like to investigate a bit more. Let's see if we can walk up here. Okay, so there's another structure here. Must have been a sheep pen of some sort, or like a small stone barn. So actually, we will walk down here first, just to make sure we didn't miss a narration point. Okay, so we can walk over these wooden berms, it seems. Oh, quite easily. Alright, well, that will make our trip a bit easier. We can walk over this one. Yes, we can. Interesting. Interesting mechanic there. Very, very subtle, but satisfying nonetheless. The actual, except for this one, the sense of being able to step over something. Ah, yes, so this was some sort of stable at one point. Oh, again that sound design. Bravo, bravo. And we shall also ascend, like our narrator, and see what we've got going on up here. Goodness gracious. Give over here a shot. So it looks like both of these trails might actually curve around the Bane house and head down towards the water, but we will investigate. This looks like another stall area. Oh, okay. I'm not sure what that is, but more. I don't know if you heard that, but it almost sounded like static of some sort. Static. Is that footsteps? Interesting. Anyway, but we've seen this sort of similar setup before. It had what I thought was maybe alchemical or chemical symbols here, but now this looks much more like that image we saw carved onto the rock down by the water that I thought was perhaps the aerial, the communications tower or something that's over there. That's what this sort of reminds me of now. Same setup, but now instead of the letters and such, it has these odd symbols. Maybe that's what the narrator is talking about, his leaving his last vestiges of civilization, or something about the aerial is very much important to him. Interesting. And now we will investigate the house proper. Low walls. Come on. Oh, yes, here we go. I heard a seagull. Again, an unusual sound considering all that we've heard so far is the sound of the wind and the waves and everything. Oh my goodness gracious! That startled me greatly. It looks like there's someone standing there with a lantern, maybe. Oh dear, a shadow figure with a lantern. Okay, so this is the same drawing that we saw before back in the cave. What I first assumed was perhaps a squid of some sort, but now I'm not so sure. An amoeba, a brain cell, or I'm trying to think of different ways and orient my head a little bit to maybe come up with different interpretations of this symbol, but I'm not quite sure, really. Oh, well, that has put me on edge. Now I'm terrified. I'm going to be walking in here to see a human.
3 cormorants seen at dusk. They did not land. This house built of stone, built by a long-dead shepherd. Contents: my camp bed, a stove, a table, chairs, my clothes, my books. The caves that score out the belly of this island, leaving it famished. My limbs and belly famished. This skin, these organs, this failing eyesight. When the battery runs out in my torch, I will descend into the caves and follow only the phosphorescence home.
Interesting. So, for some reason, there are no animals left on the island, and what does fly does not stay or land. So it looks like he came here, and he said his limbs and belly were famished. So for some reason, he was wasting away, his eyesight was failing, and he said once the batteries of his torch went out, so his flashlight, he was going to basically wander into the caves and follow the perhaps maybe glowing algae. But he had lots of paint here. A wash tub of sorts. That is either rust or looks suspiciously like blood, perhaps. A stove, some laundry here. Okay. Lamp. Scribbled writings. A stove. Looks like provisions of some sort. I wonder if there's anything here. There's Herbadian history again. These other books, I'm unable to see what they are. Let's see. Okay, so here, there was some luggage here, another camp bed. We did see one down in the caves. And looks like Russian. It almost looks like perhaps the Grim Reaper holding the hand of a young girl. Or a woman. Oh, this looks like perhaps a ship's log, maybe something that he found. And I would think that a lot of these things were maybe belonging to sailors. These look like maybe a sailor's outfit. The seagull, it actually landed. There it goes. That does suspiciously look like a person standing there. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but onward. Okay. Just to check all avenues. Okay. I think first we will go this way, since this is the way we originally came to. And then my hope is it would actually loop us back up around so we can investigate. Well, actually, I don't want to fall. It's hard to tell if, this is a ledge that I should not be sliding down or not. So, oh dear. Please let me back up. Oh goodness. Oh, there we go. Oh no. Yes. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to go that way, so I think we'll go back up here and then loop back around the other side where we saw that walkway and see what we've got in store for us there. I heard something faintly off to my right here. It sounded almost like a musical tone. I thought I heard it again. Now, how desolate it must be to live in a place like this if you're truly alone, but also how starkly beautiful. I cannot even imagine, however, the sheer force of rainstorms and so forth. I wonder if we can go here. So it looks like there's something up there, but I can't tell if that is something that we can get up to this way. Excuse my wanderings here, but I'm very curious. Oh. Oh. Did you hear that? Please tell me you heard that. Again, a voice maybe, but garbled, almost like static at the edge of hearing. This looks like a grave of some sort, and there's... Again, there's a reason these stones are set the way they are, but can't be certain how. It very vaguely reminds me of one of the symbols that we saw in the cave. Let's see if we can... I don't think we can go up here, but we'll investigate. No. I tried. We'll come back around here and proceed. That looks like the cave where I thought I saw something that looks suspiciously like a human form holding either a flashlight or lantern of some sort. That is a deep cavern. I suspect we will be heading into the cave there. Now we are quite...
Jacobson's ribcage, they told Donnelly, was deformed. The result of some birth defect, or perhaps a traumatic injury as a child. Brittle and overblown it was, and desperately light. Perhaps it was this that finally did for him, unable to contain the shattering of his heart. In half-light, his skeleton a discarded prop, a false and calcified seabird.
That's strange. A false and calcified seabird. They say that his ribcage... but why would they know about his ribcage? And that it was too light or had an issue with it? I'm starting to wonder if perhaps that is related to the ship down there, which sort of looks like a ribcage, perhaps after a fashion, and when exposed to salt air for a while, wood tends to be stripped raw and white for some reason. Or they dug up the poor man's bones and were able to find that out, but why does the narrator refer to it as a prop or a calcified seabird unless when people finally came to the island, that is how they found him, perhaps? Which is unfortunate if that's the case.
They found Jacobson in early spring.
Mm-hmm.
The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. He'd struggled halfway down the cliff path, perhaps looking for some lost goat, or perhaps in a delirium, and expired, curled into a claw right under the winter moon. Even the animals shunned his corpse. The mainlanders thought to bring it home unlucky. Donnelly claims they dragged it to the caves to thaw out and rot, but he is proving an unreliable witness.
Okay, so they did come. They came and found him dead. That's rather sad. But it must have been around here, I guess, that he perished. But they thought to bring him home unlucky, And so they drug him into the caves to rot? That seems very odd. Why not, bury him, with honor and decency instead of leaving his body in a cave to rot? But it is strange, though, that the narrator mentions that the animals did not bother his corpse, which, for animals not to do such a thing. Hello, Dag. My little cat Dagmere would like to say hello. But yes, how strange to... What a strange thing to do instead of just burying somebody, leaving them in a cave to rot. And then the fact that the animals did not bother his corpse, which, as scavengers, are the earth's cleaners, if you will. But typically, if an animal will not touch a corpse, it means there's something wrong with it, so maybe that is an omen. Pleasant little area. I'll go back. So they found him here, curled up. He says either in a delirium or looking for a lost goat, But they must have known he was sick, or perhaps they are inferring that they knew that he was ill somehow because he was out, but they didn't actually know that he was. But the narrator made it seem like he was sure. I don't know. But a sad thing to die out in someplace on your own, cold, under a winter moon, and then to lie there frozen for almost a year without any rest. Yes, this is a very old wreckage. It would seem there's something there. Oh, that's a rock. Just a very shiny rock. I thought it was something. Very old mast. What was once a ship, now almost reminiscent of a beached whale, left to be picked clean by the wind and the waves and the scavengers. But in this case, I guess, no.
Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
I don't know if you heard that, I hope you did, but as the narrator was speaking this time, there was this garbled singing of voices behind it, and I'm starting to think it has something to do with that aerial, that we're hearing something. Perhaps a signal of some sort, interfering with the narrator's words, but that is terrifying. Falling as he was trying to ascend, and a broken femur is unbelievably, horribly painful and dangerous too, especially if it has broken the skin. That might explain what he was referring to before about him wasting away and so forth, is the having to deal with a horrific injury such as that. But he said it would keep him lucid for the final ascent. And ascent to what? The aerial? And why? Oh. Out of the corner of my eye, the shape of that looked like a human form. That was terrifying.
Donnelly did not pass through the caves. From here on in, his guidance, unreliable as it is gone from me. I understand now that it is between the two of us, and whatever correspondence can be drawn from the wet rocks. They'd stop the traffic back as far as the Sandford Junction and come up the hard shoulder like radio signals from another star. It took 21 minutes for them to arrive. I watched Paul time it to the second on his watch. I am traveling through my own body, following the line of infection from the shattered femur towards the heart. I swallow fistfuls of painkillers to stay lucid. In my delirium, I see the twin lights of the moon and the Ariel shining to me through the rocks. I will hold the hand you offered to me, from the summit down to this well, into the dark waters where the small flowers creep for the sun. Headlights are reflected in your retinas, moonlit in the shadow of the crematorium chimney.